If you have come to this video with an interest in sexuality, then you have come to the right place. Today I'm going to be discussing the Muladhara as it pertains to Tantra Yoga, as it pertains to sexuality and sexual energy. I will be discussing excessive Muladhara energy and deficient Muladhara energy. That transcendence of just being here at the root or in the lower trunk, that will desire by its very nature in yogic philosophy is the root of all suffering. Muladhara for us is home. It is the root. It's what grounds us, gives us a sense of security. And it gives us a sense of wholeness within the sexual energy. If you have been sexually abused, that you can create balance by working with this Muladhara energy, this root chakra energy. Focusing on sexuality initially because many people are interested. When I produced my last video and when I did the analytics, it said that 100% of the views were men. I want to hear from you if you're a woman watching this. As we are developing in our yoga practice, and particularly in this Muladhara energy center, is to create balance through the masculine and feminine energies. When we find balance in the Muladhara, everything else in our life levels out, and then we can begin to develop the other energy centers to find balance there as well. I'll begin with speaking of actual sex, because sex is so important to our lives. I mean, obviously we are sexual creatures, humans are by nature. However, there is a difference between intimacy for making babies and then engaging in sexual intimacy for connecting with a partner. You know, once you're past your reproductive years, or if you are sexually active and you're not interested in reproduction, then sex has a totally different meaning than just reproduction. Desire by its very nature in yogic philosophy is the root of all suffering. It is true that when we desire, it is coming from a place of lack or some sense of feeling unfulfilled at this moment in time. And so the more that we investigate this true drive for sex and feeling that we are incomplete without it, and that we desire sex. Now, I am differentiating between intimacy with a partner and just in the desire for sex. Excessive masturbation. I'm not going to shame anybody for masturbating, but when you masturbate excessively every day or a few times a day, it's a strong indication of an imbalance in the Muladhara chakra. It is a seeking of something outside yourself for some kind of satiation for your desire. The watching of pornography is actually stimulating something that is unhealthy because it doesn't offer the full scope of an intimate connection with a partner. It portrays violence, often violence against women. It portrays meaningless sex, just sexual intercourse for the sake of sex. That inherently is an unhealthy imbalance in the Muladhara. And pornography also has the ability to become addictive. We do know from studies that men are the main users of pornographic material. I would warn against the exploitation of women for that. If you enjoy watching women be exploited, abused, raped, or whatever, that is serious excess of Muladhara energy. That you expel your sexual energy through sexuality or through intercourse, the weaker that you become, the more life force is taken from you. So we can be sexually healthy and powerful and balanced, but it is with the retention and the control of the flow of semen for men, and for women to empower themselves to be in divine union. I'm not going to say with a man, because not every woman has a preference for men and not every man has a preference for women. So we can, rather than specifying gender, we can say that when you come together with a partner in sexual union, that it would really be within the masculine feminine, and that is fluid. We all have masculine and feminine attributes. Some are in excess and some are deficient. Some are imbalanced. Now, we all inherently are strongly rooted in the Muladhara, and we want to be. However, there is a point where we become imbalanced. Now, imbalance could be excess energy versus deficiencies. And we're always aiming for equilibrium in each chakra, in each energy center. In relation to the Muladhara, I must bring kundalini to the forefront of this discussion, because kundalini is also inherently in each one of us. It is a dormant energy which sits at the base of the spine in the Muladhara chakra. As we navigate the path of life, we would want to be stimulating both the Muladhara chakra and balancing it out, and also taking this dormant energy, this kundalini, this Shakti energy, wake it up. Now, we want to do this with care, because if you have lived in a state of dormancy with your kundalini for your entire lifetime, and then you spontaneously awaken it through practices, it can be overwhelming, and sometimes it drives people mad, quite literally. Deficiency of sexual energy may be a complete denial of being a sexual creature or denial of the sexuality. And this may come about from being abused sexually. Now, we know that the Muladhara is developed between the ages of birth and about 6 years old. Now, between these ages, if a person has been sexually abused, that will create an inherent distrust. Absolutely shakes this foundation, this base, this sense of security and safety and trust, which can last a lifetime, as we know. And also, it is something to know that if you have been sexually abused, that you can create balance by working with this Muladhara energy, this root chakra energy. You can imagine a tree, a big, great oak tree, let's say. It has deep roots that go down into the soil to hold it securely. And then it has a strong, robust trunk. The branches or the limbs extend out in a dispersed and even way in balance with the root. as our trunk is robust and our limbs extend out into this broad canopy and the leaves begin to photosynthesize, imagine that photosynthesis being our connection with God and the higher realms, or the universal or cosmic energy, the source energy. That transcendence of just being here at the root or in the lower trunk, that will create balance throughout all of our energy centers and balance through our life. It will actually take us from a life of primitive human nature or basic survival. It will allow us to truly open up our consciousness and become in union with the divine, which really is the whole purpose of yoga. You cannot separate Tantra from yoga. They have the same root and they have the same birthplace. There may be different lineages which emphasize different practices or rituals, but really Tantra is yoga. It's a deeply spiritual practice. It is a very ritualistic practice with the purpose that, yes, we'll transcend normal human consciousness to open up to a super conscious divine union with the great cosmos, or the cosmic energy, our source, or what some people refer to as God. But Tantra also uses the sexual energy in order to elevate that and open that energy up. And through meditation and through pranayama, or our breath work, if you don't know what pranayama is, go watch my video on pranayama breath work. And through pranayama and through the chanting of mantras being the tonal chants that are used to create a connection with the vibration of your energy centers. That practice of chanting becomes a gateway into a deep meditational state. And it is through meditation and breath work and mantra that you can transcend human physical form to truly become in union with the divine. That is the path of Tantra. I certainly have a strong balance between masculine and feminine. On one hand, I'm very driven and ambitious, and I'm an avid cyclist. I like to take long distance rides, and I'm very physically active and very strong. On the other hand, I encompass all of what would be goddess energy and sensuality, and very much a homemaker. I love to be domestic and I love to take care of my man. It gives me joy. So I have this strong dichotomy of masculine, feminine, but for me it works really well. I find balance there, and actually so much balance that I often don't see the difference between the two, which is ultimately the non-dualistic nature and what we would want to be working towards through our spiritual practice, is to stop drawing lines between the opposites and start to recognize them as two sides of a coin. Think about yourself. Let me ask you this question. Do you find that you have an even balance of masculine and feminine energies? And that would be for men as well. For instance, my partner is very masculine. If you haven't watched my video on the Mula Bandha, you want to go back and watch that, and Sean is in that. And he talks a lot about his own sexual experiences and his bandha work and his ability to retain ejaculation, or he's working on it. Now, I must clarify that he is not necessarily as deeply on a spiritual path as me. He engages in meditative processes and practices almost every day. He has embraced certain aspects of spirituality since I have met him and has grown so much as a human being. But I want to refer to Sean here because he is the divine union of masculine and feminine within himself. Now, he might not want to admit to being feminine. That's my view of him, not in his physical form, but in some of his behaviors. And I will discuss that right now because this is all very important to the Muladhara and how we can begin to find balance here. So in Sean's masculine feminine nature, on one hand, he's very masculine, he's into guns, he builds off-road vehicles, he is a welder and he's working with metal, he loves metal, he loves hard, cold steel. On the other hand, he is one of the most sensitive men I have ever met. He's very willing to open up emotionally. He's loving, he's nurturing, he washes the dishes after every meal. Yes, men, take a note. He does have a masculine dominance, but he equally embraces his softer side. He loves music in general, but he really loves devotional music. He is a very strong meditator, which is a feminine attribute. It doesn't mean he is feminized in his physical form, but he is certainly willing to embrace his feminine side, although he doesn't necessarily think that in his mind. He just likes certain things, which in our understanding of masculine feminine, or you could call it the Pingala on the right and the Ida on the left if you're in the yogic practice, we have both. We all have both. It's just some people are heavily masculinized and some people are heavily feminized. You could have men that are heavily feminized and they prefer men. Maybe they prefer masculine men. You have women that are heavily masculinized and maybe they prefer feminine women as partners. We are always wanting to seek balance through these energy centers, and that is the purpose of yoga. So we wouldn't want to be heavily Pingala or right-sided or masculine energy. That will throw our balance off. And then we may enter into sexual excess. There's the opposite of that, the other extreme, which is a complete lack of interest in sex. And some people have that. There have been times in my life where I have felt that, like after I gave birth to my children and I became the mother and I didn't want to have sex at that time. So we have fluctuating energy all the time. We are not only one way or only another. We can go through periods of our life where one energy is dominant, either one energy center or the masculine or the feminine energy is dominant. And sometimes that is caused by experiences that we have, like me giving birth to my children. I was heavily feminized, right? I was the all-encompassing mother nurturer. All of my energy was going there, so I had a lack of that masculine drive. In contrast to that, we could have a trauma in our life. We could have, you could be raped. That would drive your energy probably towards the feminine. In some circumstances, it could bring upon a sense of more violence or anger, which would be masculine energy. When we experience unforeseen traumas like the death of a loved one, I've experienced this also. Shifted my energy, my feminine energy came out. I went through a deep period of grief, of going inwards and spending a lot of time in isolation. Actually, you know, I had my yoga practice at that time, which is characteristically going to be a feminized energy. So we're always going through events in our life which may create a fluctuation in energy. In the Muladhara, it may be stuck by trauma, sexual trauma. It could be a grief trauma. It could be a sense of not being rooted down. When I was a child, we moved almost every year of my life. I never had a sense of security or home. I never had a strong foundation of home. So I was deficient in a sense of security. I was, by my nature as a child, very insecure. And when a child is insecure, you know, they have nightmares, or wetting the bed, which I experienced. I'd suck my thumb. These were things that I did in order to create a sense of comfort, because I was at the core of my being not feeling that I had any sense of security, any foundation of home. I had no familiarity year after year. I always went to a different school. I had to always become the new child in school, the new kid on the block. That was not a pun. But you can see how these experiences in our lives make all the difference between how our energy centers are balanced. When I was 18 years old, I met my former husband and settled down with him right away, became really a homemaker. I had my first daughter when I was 22, 23. We bought a piece of property with a house on it. I was able to establish roots, which was really important in my life, and so I'm thankful for that. I didn't understand about any of this back then, but now that I'm 50 years old, I look back at my life and I see what led me to certain outcomes and why I was so driven to do certain things in my life. I did a lot of healing for myself in that. That mother nurturing came out in me so strongly in the process of raising my children. Of course, I did many other things in that time, but for me, that was a strong foundation coming from the root. So when I left my marriage after 24 years, I uprooted myself. Distrust really is inherently a root chakra imbalance. How we can trust our own stability in the world, how we trust that we are accepted by our peers or our community. Trust happens on many levels. How we trust income coming in or going out. Greed being the distrust in the flow and balance of energy. Greed can come from a lack of income or excessive income. So here we are coming into this balance again. Are you lacking in money, or do you have an excess of money? Both of those states can lead to greed, right? A feeling of scarcity of resources. More and more, I want to eliminate things from my life to come into a much lighter state of being, a state of being that doesn't have the burden of carrying things around with me or having too many things in my environment. Too many things is clutter in the mind, and we are always aiming in our yoga practice to have clarity of mind, have focus of mind, and to let go of all the extraneous clutter. We are going to now go into addictive behaviors, which stem from this greed or this desire for more. And addiction is rooted in that. So any people out there with addictions, you know who you are. There is no shame in it. There is only the understanding that if you want to create balance in your life, it must begin here at the root. So the Muladhara is your ticket to balancing out your addictive behaviors. When we have a weakness in the pelvic floor, it really indicates a weakness in that energy center of the Muladhara. You will know if you have a weakness in the pelvic floor. If you are a female, it may result in a bladder prolapse, uterine prolapse for either men or women, in rectal prolapse, hemorrhoids for men, testicular issues like cancer, erectile dysfunction, or premature ejaculation, an inflamed prostate gland, prostate cancer, rectal or anal cancers. Anytime we have an imbalance in any of our energy centers, that is an indicator and will often result in dysfunction or dis-ease. And you could say dis-ease, meaning just an uneasiness in symptoms, or it could be manifest in true disease and the breakdown of bodily tissues or the overgrowth of bodily tissues. Year after year, if you are truly following the path, you will get stronger. You do not become deficient in your body. You become balanced and stronger and happier and more joyful. And then the true path of Tantra, you are always in the path of spiritual pursuit, and you are not relying on anything outside of you to open that pathway up. So we are always working with the breath, with the mantras, with the asana practice, with the principles of yoga. And so we are always in ceremony, and it is a beautiful thing. The more that you let go of the human primitive behavior, the more you become divine. Magical things begin to happen in your life. A lot of work goes into making these videos, and really for me, I put my heart and soul into it because it has always been my professional drive to help heal people from dysfunction and disease. And certainly that is true with my teaching of yoga as well, and the purpose of this channel. If you want to find out more about what I offer, you can go to my website, yogamindEnergybody.com. You can email me, Kat, K-A-T, at yogamindEnergybody.com, and I would love to hear from you.